Welcome to another video from McFatter Tech Musser. If you like these videos, please click subscribe. 70-741 Implementing Network Connectivity Solutions. This is an extension to our Lab 8. Whereas in our Lab 8, and in conjunction with Lesson 8, we installed and configured routing and remote access services. We configured the routing, we enabled NAT, and then we took a look at using the route command. I want to take it a step farther. Using routers is not done with just a single route. If you're in your home, you've got NAT. And NAT does address translation for you so that your computers on your private network can go to the internet and have a sense of security and have address translation between your internal private IPs and your external facing public IP. Well, routing is a little different. Routing moves packets between networks. So rather than simply look at how we configure a router to do NAT, let's do routing. So on your screen, you can see that I've built 3 virtual machines. The first one I've named router-NAT-LAN. The second one is router subnet 1 and router subnet 2. So what I'm going to do is on router NAT LAN, it has 3 interfaces. One interface is getting an IP from my internet router, so it should have a private IP assigned by DHCP. And if we look here, what I did was I had already identified it and I renamed the adapter external. And if we go ahead, we click status and details, we can see, yes, we do have a private IP address assigned by my home internet router doing NAT. And if you're at all familiar with DNS servers, you'll recognize these as Comcast DNS servers, so you know a little bit more about me now. I'm using a Comcast internet circuit. So we're going to go ahead and close. Now, but what we need to do is one of these adapters is going to connect to our subnet 1, and the other one's going to connect to our subnet 2. We need to identify which is which, because right now they just say unidentified network and Ethernet and such. And if I look at status, well, it's got an APIP address because it's not connected to a network. But I can see what the MAC address is. And if I look here, I can see that I already know. I'm on a Hyper-V, so I know that every network adapter that I've got is going to start with 00155D. It's those last 6 characters that are important. 016148. Now I'm going to go to Hyper-V Manager. In Hyper-V Manager, looking at networking, I can see that my 006148, see it right there, this one right here is connected to my inner site switch. My 49 has to be my other adapter. It's connected to my switch 2. So I'm going to call this subnet 1. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to rename. And we're going to name it subnet 1. We're going to hit tab and name this one subnet 2. Enter. Now we're going to use 2 different subnets, 2 different networks, right? We're going to right click, we're going to go to properties, we're going to double click, and we're going to assign an IP address. We're going to put this on one scheme. Now we know that our external is a 192.168.1 from looking at the settings. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use 192.168.2.1. We'll use our default subnet mask. Do I put a gateway in here? No. Remember, doesn't matter how many adapters you have, you can only have one gateway, and our externals already got that assigned to it. We're going to click OK. We're going to click OK. On our subnet 2, we're going to use 192.168.3. So 192.168.3.1. Our default subnet. Okay. And if we refresh our server manager, we should see those IP addresses assigned and our descriptions there too. There they are. Well, they didn't clear up yet. Let's go ahead There it is. Remember, our external is getting a DHCP assigned address from our home router. Well, we know which one's subnet 1, right? We need to go over to our Hyper-V Manager again. We want to identify what we've got in there. Those IP configurations should show up again. See, now they've got the IPs shown. And if we look under subnet 1, it's connected to inner site switch. Subnet 2 is inner site switch 2. So let's go ahead and let's select our router subnet 1. We're going to go to local server. We're going to click on that IP address configuration. We're going to rename it subnet 1. We're going to go into properties, and we're going to assign that to the 192.168.2 network. And we're going to make it .2. So now these two servers should be able to talk, those two interfaces should be able to talk to each other. We'll jump over to our second router, actually our third router, but subnet 2. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to right click, we're going to rename it, we're going to call it subnet 2. We're going to right click, we're going to go to properties, and this gets the .3 network. But we'll use the same .2 for its identification. We close out, we'll refresh. I'm going to refresh over here, jump back, refresh again. There's our IP address. There's our IP address. So we've got 2.2, and we should be able to connect to this subnet right here, subnet 1. But we can't connect anything up right now because all these are is member servers, and I mean, we could enable ping and we could talk between this one and this one and this one and this one, but subnet 1 can't talk to subnet 2. Subnet 1 and subnet 2 can't get out to the internet. We need to do routing and remote access. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go manage. I'm going to add roles and features. We're going to do next, next, next. You'll notice that I'm not worried about the device name. If it's a router, who cares what the device name is if it's a router, right? I'm going to do next, next. Just so you know, on roles I selected remote access. We do next, 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 and we're going to select routing. We're going to do our remote server administration tools. Next, 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 and install. We're going to go to subnet 1 and do the same thing. Add roles. Next, next, next. Add remote access. Next, next, next. Routing. Add. Next, next, next. Install. Same thing over here. This is simulating building out a multi-subnet network. Again, remote access as a role. Do routing. Add. Next, 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 and install. Let's see where our subnet 2's at. It's just about done. How about subnet 1? It's well on its way, and our NAT LAN is just beginning. So I'm going to pause the video until our role installation is featured on all three. Okay, so our roles are installed, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close our add roles and features wizard, and so that we can ping across servers once we've proven our routing, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go into Defender Firewall, and I'm going to enable the ability to be able to ping on IPv4, and that's done here under File Printer Sharing Echo Request ICMP v4. We just right click and enable. That's all you got to do. I'm going to do the same thing here. And on our subnet 2 as well. So this is 192.168.3.2, so I should be able to ping 3.1. Let's make sure we can do that. And yes, we can. But do you think we can ping 2.1? I kind of doubt it. We have no routing in place, right? Nothing's going to happen. It's going nowhere. Now from over here on our subnet 1, on our 2 network, we should be able to ping 2.1. We can. Can we get to the internet? No, we're not connected to the internet, right? No, it's not going anywhere. So let's begin with our subnet 2. I'm going to go to Tools, and I'm going to go down to Routing and Remote Access. We're going to right-click on our server name, and we're going to configure Enable Routing and Remote Access. We're going to click Next, and we want to be able to route between our clients. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go down here, and I'm going to go Custom, and I'm going to say LAN Routing, and do Next and Finish. Don't need to worry about this. Probably hasn't been started yet, so we're just going to go ahead. We're going to click Finish. While that's finishing up, I'm going to go in here. We're going to go Tools, Routing and Remote Access. We're going to right-click. We're going to Configure. We want to be able to connect between networks, right? So we want a custom configuration. We're going to do LAN, Next, and Finish. And we'll click OK. We're going to start the service. We need to start the service. Now on our NAT LAN, we're going to do a little bit different configuration. We're going to go Tools, Routing and Remote Access. We're going to right click, we're going to configure, we're going to do a custom, and we're going to say NAT and LAN Routing. Next, Finish. Wait for our prompt. We can see that here we have our LAN routing. Now, will it learn anything? No, we don't have any protocols to do automatic learning. We'd have to create static routes, right? Let's go ahead. We're going to right click on General, and we're going to say New Routing Protocol, and I'm going to select RIP and click OK. On the RIP, I'm going to right click, and I'm going to say New Interface, and I'm going to say Subnet 2 and OK. I'm going to do the same thing over here on 1. We're going to expand IPv4. We're going to right click General, New Routing Protocol, RIP, select RIP, right click, New Interface, Subnet 1, and Update. On our LAN, NAT LAN, we're going to click Start Service. Just wait for it to start. I'm going to make this a little bit larger. We're going to expand this and expand IPv4. We've got NAT, but there's nothing there. We want to right click and say New Interface. And I'm going to select the external and click OK. I'm going to say it's a public interface connected to the internet and enable NAT on this interface and click OK. We'll go ahead and we're going to add our other interfaces, our other two subnets as private. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to add RIP to be able to route between those subnets. In fact, I'm even going to add the external. Let's see if this computer can get to the internet. first off, you know what I want to do? Let's see, is it turned off? Yes, it is. Okay, I wanted to make sure that enhanced configuration was turned off so I wasn't getting one prompt after another after another. We've got internet on our NAT LAN. Can I ping our destinations? 192.168.2.2. I can get to that. What about 3.2? Sure can. Now, the question is, can these get to the internet? Let's open a command prompt. And let's try pinging 192.168.2.1. Yep, we can get there. What about 8.8.8? No, I cannot. Okay, so we can ping, right? What's one thing else we have to do? We've got a gateway defined on our NAT LAN, right? That's our external interface. We proved that we can get to the internet. What about a gateway for Subnet 1? How does Subnet 1 know to get anywhere? Did we define a gateway address? If we click on 2.2, go to Properties. 2.1 needs to be its gateway. And we can go ahead and we're going to put in that same, let's just do 8.8.8.8. And we'll let that be its DNS. Because if we want to be able to resolve DNS, we got to have a way to do it, right? We won't be able to use the web browser if we don't. We'll go ahead and now this is in our subnet 2, and it's going to use 3.1. And we'll define that same 8.8.8.8. If we were on our own private domains, we'd be using our own internal DNS servers, so none of our internal DNS requests would go out to the internet. That's another way to increase your security. So let's take a look. We're on subnet 2. We'll just bring up PowerShell on there. Let's take a look and see what we've got here. Let's start out. What's my IP config? I'm on 3.2. My gateway's 3.1, right? Well, can I ping that? I can, in fact. What about 2.1? Well, that's on that same server, so I should be able to ping that because it's on the same server as 3.1, and I can. But can I get to 2.2? That's on a different destination, right? I can. So subnet 2 can ping subnet 1. Wonder if I can get to the internet. Let's see if it works. It does. I should be able to go ahead and browse the internet. And there it is. So we're not doing NAT here. We're not doing any NATing on this router. This is simply doing LAN routing. If we look at our setup on our routing and remote access, we can see we've got traffic, we've got incoming and outgoing bytes. There's no static routes defined, but if we look at our routing table, we can see that it learned. It knows about the 2.0 network, as well as our own network. It also knows about the 1.1 network. That's what the RIP did for us. It allowed us to learn those routes. If we look at neighbors, we can see that its direct neighbor, it's only got one interface, so it can only show one. There's that 3.1. What about over here on our NAT LAN where that 3.1's at? If I right click on RIP and show neighbors, it learned about both of those. It now can route from subnet 2, any packets destined for subnet 1 to come in and are forwarded on. we're also doing NAT. This is how you do routing. So we've got one router that is our destination to the internet. It also gives us our connectivity between our internal subnets. So perhaps subnet 1 is our research and development. Perhaps subnet 2 is where our sales is at. And we decided we wanted to physically separate those divisions. Well, there still may be a need for traffic to move back and forth between them. And that is what our router-NAT-LAN does. Let's verify that this subnet 1 can also get to the internet. I have no doubts that it will. And there it is. Can it ping 3.2? It should. And it can. Now we can't resolve names internally because we are not running any internal DNS. But we can get to the internet, we can do our routing. We have full connectivity. There could be, whether there's 1 or 1,000 computers in each one of these subnets, they could all get to the internet and they could all talk to each other. I hope you enjoyed this shortened lab. That's an extension to our Lab 8 in 70-741, which deals with routing and remote access services with NAT. And we expanded upon that to show how we can enable LAN routing and also be able to use RIP to automatically learn our routes. If you enjoy these videos, please subscribe to my channel. And as I always end our videos, I'll see you in the next lab or lesson. Have a great one.